Tactical Team.
Hello, this is Malorian. This is Orc Tactical Team. And this question here today is going to be coming from the Google Plus Warhammer YouTubers page. It actually comes from Anthony from the Sustainable Center. And he's saying, you know, Malorian, I've been facing off against these Warriors of Chaos, all Chariot Armies. Could you do a little talk about these? Talking about, you know, what should be in it, what's viable, blah, blah. And then I had some other people ask, hey, well, what about all the Orc and Goblin ones? Can you talk about those too? And I thought, hey, let's go and we'll mix these together and we'll talk about both and actually just say which one's better between the two. So take your bets now and we'll see what I say at the end. So let's start with the first one here, the Warriors of Chaos. They're probably now a very strong chariot army because they actually can be all chariots. There's not many armies that actually can do that. I mean, for them, they have their core chariots, they have their special, which is Gore Beast, and of course their characters can go on it too. Now, when you're looking at this, the next thing to look at is what mark should you be taking. And, I mean, there's a 4 to take, but there really is only 2 to think of. Tzeentch is Slaanesh is just not really needed. And so what it really comes down to is either the Nurgle or Khorne. Now, Khorne is pretty awesome. You get those extra attacks, you're immune to Psych, and that's a big deal because one of the things that can be an issue is leadership tests. Because you'll have all these units, and even though they're leadership 8, you know, a cannonball goes through and kills one, and all of a sudden you're taking panic tests, several of them, and especially if you're Anthony, you're probably going to fail like, what, 10 of them? No, but, you know, it is kind of a big deal. So being Khorne means you don't need to worry about that because you're immune to Psych. Mark of Nurgle, on the other hand, makes it so that you're going to be more resilient. You're -1 to be hit, and so when you're slamming into these big blocks and taking all these attacks, being -1 to hit is a very big deal. So really what you need to do is compare the two and say, all right, what's really the trade-off here? Well, the bad thing about the Mark of Nurgle is obviously you have to worry about the leadership bomb type thing. The bad thing about the Khorne one is actually, I'd say, a lot worse, which is the whole idea where they can be baited around. Not only can you move up and force them to be taking all these leadership tests to see whether they have to be forced to fail charge or not, the other thing is you can be throwing up something like Fast Cav. They either have to hit them or do nothing. And when they do that, they're forced to overrun. And chariots are all about the charge, right? So if you force them to just kind of like redirect off, you flank them or countercharge or whatever, they're in a lot of trouble. And they can't even flee the charge or anything like that. So really, I really think that the Mark of Nurgle chariots are the way to go. If anything, maybe do a layered approach. Why not have your Nurgle chariots in the front and Khorne chariots in the back? So that way the Nurgle chariots can go out and try and like clear out that chaff. They can actually flee. They don't have to worry about being forced to overrun. And then normally if a cannon's going to shoot something that's in the front, not something in the back. And so if it kills a Nurgle chariot, the Khorne chariots in the back won't have to take tests. So that's one way you can do that there. I guess the next question is, what ratio of your chariots should you have between regular chariots and the Gore Beasts? And it really is, there's nothing really solid there. I mean, the Gore Beast chariots, they're very nice. They can grind down. They get those extra nice strong attacks. However, they're more expensive and they don't come from your core. And so really, I don't think there's a right answer here. I mean, obviously, you got to fill in your core. You at least have to have that 25%. But if you're doing a chariot-themed army, you're probably going way over the min anyway. And you're not going to probably get to, what, up to 50%? Because, I mean, you can only take 3 of those Gore Beast chariots anyway. So depending on the point size, maybe you're taking 2, maybe you're taking 3, and then tons of regular chariots. Now, I guess the next question here is, well, what about your characters, right? You could be going with a character theme, but the big thing here is you have to really ask yourself. It's almost like when somebody says, hey, I'm going to go with a Night Goblin theme. Well, how much and how strict are you going to stay to that theme? Because you could take your characters. You could take a Lord. You could take your Sorcerer, your BSB. You can throw them on chariots as well. That's an option. But, of course, it's risky because if they get hit by that cannon, they're in big trouble. And the nice thing about Warriors of Chaos, of course, they have some very awesome fast options. You can be throwing in your regular 2 Chimeras and a Demon Prince, and they can be up there going fast with the chariots. And really, the thing is here, like whether a cannon is shooting at a chariot that has a character on it or at the Demon Prince, it's basically the same thing. You know, you're not hiding in a unit is what I'm trying to say here. So, for the most part, what you got to really do then is just decide how true to the theme are you going to be. And you know, whenever I do with my Orcs and Goblins, I say, hey, whatever, throw the characters out there. You can do some fun things. I mean, you can also be worried about too, where that if you're going to be going after a character and you're charging in with all these different chariots, if one of them is the one there with your character on it, you have to worry about them being challenged out. However, before that, all the challenges happen, all those impacts happen. So it's one of those things there where it really depends on you and how much you like to convert and which way you want to go. Let's face it, the Demon Prince is awesome, and that's probably the way you should go. Now, before we start saying about how good this one is in a tournament, how about we now go and talk about the Orc and Goblin side? And I guess the first thing to say about the Orc and Goblin Chariot Army is the fact that there's no way to make it pure, because there is no core Orc and Goblin Chariot. Everything is in special or in rare if you're covering the pump wagons as well. You have your Boar chariots and you have your Wolf chariots, and everything is there in special. And that also makes it very limiting, because not only can you not have everything be a chariot, but you're now limited to the 3 repeat of any special choice. So the best you can do is 3 Boar chariots, and at least for the Wolf chariots, you can combine them and make those units of 3. And one of the cool things too is that they're so cheap that 3 Wolf chariots is about the same cost as a marked Warriors of Chaos chariot as well. But you're basically then going to be looking at the 3 units of 3 Wolf and the 3 Boar chariots. And that's pretty damn powerful for the punch. That's a lot of freaking impact hits to be taking. And of course, you can have the silly pump wagons going around and stuff like that. But really, like I was saying, is your core has to come from somewhere else. So whether you're going to be trying with the theme of being fast, and you're going to be taking your fast cab, whether it's Wolf Riders, Spider Riders, or you're going to say like, hey, this is where I'm going to be getting my ranks. This is where I'm going to be taking big blots of Night Goblins, and I can work them in tandem and saying, all right, the Night Goblins go in, I'm going to be taking away Steadfast. The Chariots slam in, and they get the kills. You lose, Chariots run you down, right? So you can really work that together. But again, it's kind of cheating because you're not all Chariots. But hey, it's Goblins. You got to be cheating anyway. But that's definitely a big deal. Now, maybe something to look at is if we were trying to say, like, okay, we want to be as Chariot-themed as possible, who's going to be better off for having their characters on the Chariots? And for the most part, it's probably... Let's look at it this way. The Chariot is going to be stronger coming from the Warriors of Chaos, right? You got that 3+ armor save. You can make it mark a Nurgle, and that part will be a lot tougher. As far as a War Boss versus a Chaos Lord goes, yeah, Chaos Lords are pretty damn nasty. You can make a pretty awesome War Boss, but in the end, the stats are on the side of the Chaos Lord. So, you know, it's going to be tougher. But then again, if a cannon hits them, it really is going to come down to they both have 3 wounds. The best thing you can get is, you know, maybe you have the Charm Shield on there to protect yourself. Maybe you're going to be going with a 4+ ward normally, something like that. There's not really a lot extra on either side that's really going to protect them. So in either case, they're going to be a really super killy guy that gets in there. And really, after the Charm Shield and maybe a 4+ ward, if they do get hit by this cannon, they're both dead anyway. So they're both kind of all right. As far as putting the Mage in there, this is where then the Warriors of Chaos really come ahead, because they can actually put armor on. So whereas the best armor you're going to be seeing on a Shaman is coming from the Chariot, well, for the Warriors of Chaos, they can feel free slamming into combat there, because they're going to be having, well, if they want, a really good armor save. Now, past that, which then is the best one to take? Which is going to be doing best in tournaments? And the funny thing is that if you're playing in regular games, you're looking at it, people really fear the Warriors of Chaos Chariot Army, because you can take so many. You can see the Demon Prince. You know, this is a scary army that's going to be kicking your butt, taking names, and I mean, it's going to dominate in table at times as well. Whereas with the Orcs and Goblins, it's like, okay, you got the animosity, leadership issues, and it's probably not going to do that well. However, you take this to a tournament, and all of a sudden, the Orc and Goblin one is actually going to do better. And let me explain to you why. The reason is, first of all, scenarios. With the scenarios here, let's look at them. You got the Blood and Glory. Well, where are your banners coming from in the Warriors of Chaos? You have your General. I guess you could take a BSB. And then what do you got? You got nothing. So if you're playing anything higher than a 2,000 point game, you lose automatically. Meanwhile, with the orcs and goblins, who are forced to cheat and forced to take the guys on foot, there your banner's right there. And so if you're ever playing Blood and Glory, well, you automatically have that win with the orcs and goblins, whereas you don't have that with the Warriors of Chaos. So hey, there's a good thing there. Then you also have the whole Watchtower thing. Wow. Chariot armies hate Watchtower because it's not even a thing where like Bretonnia's like, all right, let's get off our horses. I'll now have a 5+ armor save and try and fight in this thing here, or 4+ against the shield. This is now like, I just can't charge the building. I just can't do anything. So again, it's going to go to the orcs and goblins who are forced to cheat, and they can actually have these units that can not only charge the building, but they actually can stay in it. Now, of course, if we're talking about kind of cheating on the Warriors of Chaos side and taking a Demon Prince, sure, he can charge in there too and try and kill guys and all that stuff, but there's really only so much he can do, and the main thing is that each turn he's forced back out, and that's a massive deal. So actually being able to have units that go inside it is pretty good. So really, like looking at there, if I saw all of one and all of the other, I'd say in a tournament style, because of that, the orcs and goblins are going to win because they just are going to do better in all of the scenarios. As well, the second reason why I'm going to say that they're going to do better in a tournament is that you're probably going to be getting better sportsmanship. It's funny, again, I said just right now that, you know, the orc and goblin guys are going to do better. However, there is such this thought out there like Demon Princes, broken. All these core chariots, broken. You see a guy taking a bunch of chariots and a Demon Prince and all this stuff. Like, look at this cheesy bastard. I'm going to be like marking him down for sportsmanship and comp and all this stuff. Meanwhile, you look at the orcs and goblins and like, whoa, you took all these chariots? I mean, where's your Savage Arc Biggins and your horde of trolls and your horde of black orcs? Oh, you left it all at home and you took chariots? That's awesome. You know, top score. You know, it's it's one of those nice little underlying, you know, like underground rather, parts of being a greenskin where people just love you and love you when you take these crazy lists. Whereas if you're a Warriors of Chaos guy and with your, you know, Demon Prince is like, oh, you cheesy bastard. So that's really it there. For more tactical in-depth things of how you have to be using this, I mean, of course, it's pretty easy. Like I said, for the orcs and goblins, you want to go in there first with your night goblins, make sure that you're going to tie them down, take away steadfast, and then counter into chariots. When it comes over to the Warriors of Chaos here, you want to have probably those Nurgle chariots in the front. You want them to be just, you know, like 6.1 inches apart so that if one dies, the ones beside it don't panic. Behind it, you can have your Khorne chariots ready to like come in after, so that after you have the first wave go in, they go in after. And the real thing you probably have to really accept is the fact that you have to be ready to go and grind down. You're not going to be like the Orc and Goblin version where it's like, all right, no steadfast, I have more kills, I run you down. You are always going to be having an opponent with steadfast unless you have one of these crazy situations. So it's really going to be a thing you have to grind down slowly, slowly. And what you need to do then is obviously have several chariots in every combat to make sure you can slow these things down. Now, another thing you can do that's pretty nice with the chariots too is I mean, if you're going to be taking all these chariots going into one unit, you're going to be kind of outmanned here and outflanked. So you can really use these chariots to go and also kind of like deal with the other units as well. Because even though they're not stubborn, what chariots are pretty good for is that they can charge in, win the first round of combat. Warriors of Chaos chariots are so killy and resilient that they are either going to, in the following rounds, even one chariot, if it's a weak unit of, let's say, halberdiers or something, you are either going to be able to tie combat, win it, or lose it by a little bit, and then hopefully hold at leadership 7 or whatever it is. But even then, let's say you break, the nice thing is that you're still a chariot, so as they are chasing you with 2d6, you are fleeing with 3d6, take the 2 highest. So you really have to play that into your game. Of course, if you're running the Demon Prince, hell, the Demon Prince might be running block himself, right? If I got something big and nasty coming, bam, Demon Prince is going to go in there hoping to grind it down over, 12 rounds of combat. And then meanwhile, while that's all locked down, chariots are hitting everything else. But you really have to keep that in mind because it's such a different game to play as opposed to anything else. So there you have it. There's the 2 types of chariot armies. I hope you got a good taste for each. And if you're asking me which one you should go buy, Dorks and Goblins. So thanks for watching, and we'll have another one right away.